Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I want to thank whichever delegate placed this letter on our desk on Friday, and I hope everybody had a chance to take a look at it. And this is a letter a very well-written letter in opposition to this motion before us on Senate Bill 460. And this letter comes from Dr. Christensen, Dr. Amjad, and Dr. Slim. All right. I had a similar reaction to this letter.
House bid order.
This letter came from the three last state public health officers that we had here in West Virginia. And it shouldn't matter. Public health is not about politics, but I know it does. It might matter to some. That I happen to know 2 out of 3 of these doctors are registered Republicans. Shouldn't matter. It might to some folks. And all 3 of these worked under the previous Republican administration, and yet all 3 are very much, for very good reason, which is laid out in this letter, very much against this proposal before us. And what's missing from this letter, though, is a current state public health officer. It was brought up Friday during the debate that unfortunately right now West Virginia does not have a state public health officer. However, I am certain that if that position was filled and we had a state public health officer, they would join the last 3 in signing this letter and speaking out against this dangerous proposal. And they would do so because this bill was just introduced, in February? Since then, just since the introduction of this bill, there have been 2 deaths in the United States attributed to measles. One down in Texas of a little girl. Just since this bill was introduced in February, the numbers of measles cases in the United States already outnumbers all we had on record for it last year in 2024. We've already outpaced 2024, and it's only March. And since this bill was introduced, 3 out of the 5 bordering states have had reports of measles outbreaks. So I'm certain if the state did have a public health officer right now, they would be joining with our last 3 in opposing this bill. And would be advising the governor and us in the legislature to vote against it, to vote against this dangerous proposal. And in light of all this information that we're getting from around the country, it really boggles the mind that we're going forward with this. The governor and his staff and those of us in here should be looking at these statistics from other states and reversing course on this. Instead, we're looking at the information and say, well, hold my raw milk. I'm going to double down on bad public policy today and move forward with this dangerous proposal. Now, some of us seem a little bit adverse to listening to experts and ignore the letter on our desk from our public health officials, but we should at least be listening to the people who sent us here. We should be listening to the people of West Virginia, and it hasn't been distributed widely, but this morning we saw polling from the State Chamber of Commerce, not exactly a radical left-wing organization. The Chamber of Commerce put out polling that said this proposal polls at about 5.5%. About 5.5% of West Virginians support this bill. Polls slightly lower than the Pitt Panthers in West Virginia. It is not popular. So we should do right by the people of West Virginia, do right by the children of West Virginia, join together in a bipartisan fashion, vote this bill down, and then reach out to the governor and ask him to rescind his dangerous executive order on childhood immunizations. Please vote no.